basically, oh yeah, yeah, you can see your turn off now.
I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna get off on this one. I can't even hear you. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Get your ass back, cat.
Please, please. Yeah, so I was saying he's developed a celestial constitution, and I think it's Article 6 or so. He said in that constitution he has like a a treaty within the constitution. So I was showing him the same information that I showed you about the treaty, the United Nations Treaty Handbook, and how to deposit that with the Secretary General, so that way he can, he can kind of like, get it off the ground, get it, get that international recognition that that we're trying to obtain. You know what I'm saying? So like you can go back and watch the videos. They're on my page and everything. And you see what the brother's building with, and you know, he got a powerful thing going on. So that's something that I'm working with, and brothers trying to add on and build on to, because like I said, it says in that treaty handbook, it shows you how to deposit your treaties and get them into the recognition of the nations. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's what I was been dealing with lately.
I still can't change my background on this one either.
Oh, okay. Now, yeah, say the same thing now. Don't say
Yeah, it ain't allowing me to change my background on this. I
Because,
think I got to get on Chrome to do it.
maybe.
I'm on another browser right now. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah,
Ain't
maybe.
allowing me to do it on this browser. It says this browser doesn't support background effect.
Okay, yeah, that's
So I
what.
probably got to do it on Chrome.
Yeah, yeah. Could you switch the browser, or that'll be the next time? I guess maybe it's on. I don't know if you.
Right. Oh, it's two people in here, huh? Oh, that's us.
Yeah, right. Right, sometimes I'm looking at things. Yo, who is this? Yo, the fuck, like,
I'm
I
like,
didn't know
they
myself.
listening.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, you were saying though earlier. You were saying before though about you were going into about what you.
Yeah, we drafting our constitution too right now. We getting it together, but we still getting our seal together right now, and we already got a flag or whatever that we designed and everything. I just got to get it, you know what I'm saying, the actual flag done. So yeah, we working towards the same goal, and really, it's to me, um, a lot of the treaties we already are protected under it, but a lot of people don't understand the consequentity and the political uh, unity to the original treaties were signed with. The party of the state that the treaties were signed with. One of the original parties was Morocco.
So the citizens of Morocco would be able to utilize that treaty.
Yeah, I mean through their council, through their through their government, they will be able to. The government would enforce it, not them necessarily. There are self-executing. There are parts of the treaty that's self-executing, meaning you don't need the legislation to enforce it or whatever. But for the most part, is you have to do it through your structure, through your government. You have to enforce it through your government.
What parts of the treaty that you don't need legislation to enforce?
Well, there are, like I said, I think it's I'm not really clear on all the self executing parts, so I'll have to get back on you, back at you on that or whatever. But there are parts of it. It's not much. It's really mostly based on if a council was not needed. You know what I'm saying, but if a council is needed, then that will make it where the council will have to step in and enforce whatever part of that treaty. You know what? I witnessed. You see this cat right here?
Yeah.
This cat fell out of a two-story building yesterday and survived. They really got 9 lives, nigga. This motherfucker stupid ass fell out. He laid out there for a little while. I had to go out there and get his ass, but he was shocked. He was shocked, I guess, because he sat down for a little while. But he's back to normal, I guess. Still gonna probably take him to the vet. That's crazy.
I wanted to show and this is the treaty handbook. I wanted to go. Did you have you gone through this yet?
A little bit. I went through some of it. Could I share my screen too?
Yeah, yeah. Not at the same time.
Not
But,
while you sharing, but I'm
yeah.
saying I
You
got the
want,
capability too.
all right, all right. Yeah, yeah. Afterwards, I can show you. But you can see this here that this table of contents here is going into depositing of multilateral treaties, Secretary General as depository functions of the Secretary General. Let's just go into some of that. So I'm gonna read this off. Depositing of multilateral
Well, I know
treaties.
somebody up here now. 3 people.
It says 3 people.
Huh?
It says 3 people. You tell me. Well, it got me in there twice. I don't know why it's me twice. Or maybe because me and my presentation. Yeah, what I'm showing. My presentation is the third thing in there. All right, so
I wish I can use. I wish I can use the program that I usually be using. That OBS. Could you use OBS on here?
What now? What's that?
That's like one of those streaming services where you can. I mean, like a software where you can stream on it. You can put all these different scenes on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be ill. Yeah, I can only do like one at a time on here. I'd only do like one screen share.
But I don't think that program is compatible with this one because they don't even got it on there because it usually have a list of other software that's compatible with or the apps it's compatible with.
All right, so I'm gonna read this off here.
Depositing multilateral treaties. See the summary of practice, paras 9 to 37. 2.1 Secretary General as depositary. The Secretary General of the United Nations, at present, is the depositary for over 500 multilateral treaties. The Secretary General derives this authority from A. Article 98 of the Charter of the United Nations, B. Provisions of the treaties themselves, C. General Assembly Resolution 24-1 of the 12th of February 1946. And D. League of Nations Resolution of the 18th of April 1946.
Right. So that's their authority. That's where they get their authority from. The Article 98 of the Charter of the United Nations, provisions of the treaties themselves.
Oh, that was the convention.
Right. These is where they that's where they derive their authority from. The Charter.
You heard me? You hear me?
So yeah, that.
I can barely hear you. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you did.
So that was the convention, right? The League of Nations.
Right. Well, that was one of them. Also the General Assembly resolution, the provisions of the treaties themselves, and Charter, of the United Nations. So that's where the Secretary General derives its authority from to do what they do.
2.2 Depository Functions of the Secretary General.
How can I make what
The
you do?
depositary of a treaty is responsible for ensuring the proper execution of all treaty actions relating to that treaty. The depositary's duties are international in character, and the depositary is under an obligation to act impartially in the performance of those duties.
Pause. You heard that? It says the depositary of a treaty is responsible. So they have responsibilities for ensuring the proper execution of all treaty actions relating to that treaty. The depository's duties, so they also have duties, are international in character, and
I knew it was the right.
And the depository.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I already. No, I'm already familiar with this because I already knew it was an article in the.
You know what I'm saying? So I was emphasizing.
Doing donuts out there. My bad.
I was emphasizing.
Yeah, it's an article of the Vienna Convention.
Yeah.
It's an article of the Vienna Convention, Article 77, right?
Well, this particular one is not necessarily dealing with that, but they get into that though. They speak about that though in as far as when they go into the science of the treaties and whatnot. You know what I mean? Because their whole.
I'm trying to see where was the original authority that granted them the power to be a depository.
Right. Yeah. Right. All of this originally goes back to the Vienna Convention, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what I was telling brothers. I keep we be going through all this other stuff. I'm like, yo, Q, we need to just read the Vienna Convention, man, because this is where all this shit stems from.
Right.
And really, all we got to do is just adopt the provisions of that treaty. You know what I'm saying? Of that convention. You know what I'm saying? And then that'll give us the authority to do the same thing that these other nations are doing.
See, but what happens is, brother, this is the thing.
They get the authority from.
You got to be in a particular status in order for this to apply.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
This is why a lot of people can't even aspire to get to being ascending to treaties like that, because their status is already, you know what I'm saying, in limbo, legal limbo, really.
Right. And you know why? Because we're dealing with the state instead of the international. We're dealing with the state depository instead of the international depository. We taking all our documents and just handing them over to the state.
Well, yeah, I agree with you.
You know what I'm saying? And
right, because that would be an inferior government. That would be an inferior place a jurisdiction out. That's what I was looking at. That would be an inferior jurisdiction right there, because they all are subject to these higher international laws.
Right. Exactly.
So that's what we've been learned. We don't address the United States of America when in any of the issues, and they have no power to adjudicate over Moore's affairs. The United States of America. What we bypass them and go to the British Council, right? because the British is most favored nation in treaties between the Moroccan nation and the Moroccan Empire and the British. So that will be the state we will refer to when we're enforcing treaty and we're acting for council rights, enforcing treaty and acting for our council rights to be respected. So the United States of America is an inferior jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Duties. The Secretary General is guided in the performance of depositary functions by A. Provisions of the relevant treaty, B. Resolutions of the General Assembly and other United Nations organs, C. Customary international law, and D. Article 77 of the Vienna Convention 1969.
There you go.
In practice, the treaty
Hold
section
on.
of the United Nations
Article 77.
Vienna Convention, 1969.
Nations
So, and says, in practice, the Treaty of Sections, the nation's Office of Legal Affairs, they are the ones who carry out the depository functions on behalf of the Secretary General. They're like a subsidiary of the Secretary General.
Office of Legal Affairs carries out depositary functions on behalf of the Secretary General. 2.3 Designation of depositary. See Section 6.5, which explains how to arrange with the treaty section for deposit of a multilateral treaty with the Secretary General. The negotiating parties to a multilateral treaty may designate the depositary for that treaty either in the treaty itself or in some other manner, example, through a separate decision adopted by the negotiating parties. When a treaty is adopted within the framework of the United Nations, or at a conference convened by the United Nations, the treaty normally includes a provision designating the Secretary General as the depositary for that treaty. If a multilateral treaty
So they just said that normally includes a provision is designating the Secretary General as depository for that treaty. So in other words, in your provisions, you're going to state that basically, yeah, we're going to deposit this with the Secretary General, and they're going to be the depository for this treaty. You know what I'm saying? Basically.
Well,
it's kind of like giving them permission, because you know how I just said before how they can act, they derive their powers from the provisions of the treaties themselves. So therefore, you have to make a provision in your treaty stating that you designate the Secretary General as a depository, and therefore they can do what they do. You know what I'm saying? Because you gave them permission to, basically, or provision to do so. You know what I mean?
has not been adopted within the framework of an international organization, or at a conference convened by such an organization, it is customary for the treaty to be deposited with the state that hosted the negotiating conference. When a treaty is not adopted within the framework of the United Nations, or at a conference convened by the United Nations, it is necessary for parties to seek the concurrence of the Secretary General to be the depositary for the treaty before designating the Secretary General as such.
Right. So in other words, if you didn't go through the United Nations, you can't just say, "Yo, the Secretary General, he's going to deposit that," because you didn't notify them. You know what I'm saying? You didn't put them on notice or anything like that. You gotta let them know what's going on, so then they could assist you. And as you're gonna see in here, yo, they help you with so much stuff, man. They help you do this shit, man. It's like they make it so easy for you. Watch.
View of the nature of the Secretary General's role, being both political and legal, the Secretary General gives careful consideration to the request.
Right.
In general, the Secretary General's policy is to assume depositary functions only for 3. 2 depositing multilateral treaties. 4. A. Multilateral treaties of worldwide interest adopted by the General Assembly or concluded by plenipotentiary conferences convened by the appropriate organs of the United Nations that are open to wide participation. And B. Regional treaties adopted within the framework of the regional commissions of the United Nations that are open to participation by the entire membership of the relevant commissions. Since final clauses are critical in providing guidance to the depositary and in discharging the depositary function effectively, it is important that the depositary be consulted in drafting them. Unclear final clauses may create difficulties in interpretation and implementation both for states parties and for the depositary.
Pause. See, so it says since final clauses, and also after this document, you can also go on what's called, and you could look up the final clauses handbook. But the final clauses handbook is more so like the handbook for the Department of for the Office of Legal Affairs, because it kind of gives them like their guidelines and protocols on how they do what they do, like all their rules and policies and whatnot. And it says since final clauses are critical in providing guidance to the depository and in discharging the depository functions effectively, so in other words, so they could do what they do properly, it is important that the depository be consulted in drafting them. So that's why I say you got to put them on notice and so forth. Unclear final clauses may create difficulties in the interpretation and implementation, both for states parties, and for the depository. So in other words, like I was saying, when you deal with the depository secretary general, you give them provision to do so and so forth, because if not, then they can't really do what you saying they did, but you didn't notify them of, and so forth. And like I said, also the final clauses, the Secretary General is going to review the documentation and everything before they even send it off to these other nations or peoples or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So they kind of like, fine tooth comb it and make sure that it's right. That's their job to do so. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you got a college professor, and then he has like a professor that works under him who grades all the school work and stuff like that, grades all the papers and essays and stuff. That's kind of like what the Secretary General does, you know what I'm saying? And, or rather I say more so, the Secretary General is like the professor, and then the Office of Legal Affairs, they're like the people who are subsidiary that handle all the paperwork and do what they do and all that. So, you know what I mean? Basically, they have a structure on how all of this is set up and so forth. You know what I mean?
Depositary. 3. Participating in multilateral treaties. 1. 3.1 Signature. 3.1.1 Introduction. See Section 6.2, which illustrates how to arrange with the treaty section to sign a multilateral treaty. One of the most commonly used steps in the process of becoming party to a treaty is signing that treaty. Multilateral treaties contain signature provisions indicating the place of signature, date of opening for signature, period of signature, etc. Such treaties also list the methods by which a signatory state can become party to them, example, by ratification, acceptance, approval, or accession. 3.1.2 Open for signature. See the summary of practice, paras 116 to 119. Multilateral treaties often provide that they will be open for signature only until a specified date, after which signature will no longer be possible. Once a treaty is closed for signature, a state may generally become a party to it by means of accession. Some multilateral treaties are open.
So in other words, like when it first goes down, like say for example, like when the Constitution was first written and all of that, the people, or the Declaration of Independence, the people that signed on to it at first, you see there John Hancock on the thing. And then I guess maybe it wasn't open for signature after a while, but then also people could still adopt the Constitution, you know what I'm saying, or accede to the Constitution, so that way they could still put it in legal effect, you know what I'm saying. So that's the science of accession. So out of all those things they mentioned, ratification, signature, accession. Accession is the major one you want to do because that's the quickest one. They're going to talk about accession and how when you accede to a treaty, the effect is in effect immediately. even though you gotta wait 6 months afterwards for your conference and everything. But as soon as you accede to it, and the Secretary General sends you a certificate of depository, you good. You in the building. You can start implementing that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say I'm doing.
Let me read this right quick.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the structure of a summary of practice follows the chronological order of the function to be performed by the depository from the time of conclusion of the treaty. Each phrase is dealt with in a separate charter in which the common problem, the solution adopted, and the current practice are described. Give me a lot more because I go through every concept and break it down, bro, so I can know for sure.
Yeah.
Talking about even when they was talking about how the specific treaty, like what specific treaties are you trying to ascend to?
Right. Yeah, right. You know, like I said, like some people say, like, yo, we don't have to do everything the way they say. I'm like, I hear you on that, but until we get something established where we can be like, okay, our government is sovereign and it rules and so forth, then I think you might want to follow the rules for now, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, people be talking all this, yo, but we did solve, all right, man, that sounds good, man, but you know, until we actually put that shit into action, you know, it's.
I mean, that's just rhetoric that doesn't
right.
fit international standard. Like we have to be mindful and adjust our minds to the international standard, because that's where the protections, that's where the actual protections are.
I love that. I like what you just said. Say that again. Adjust our minds to that.
The actual protections are on the international level.
Right there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Exactly, brother. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And while we still in the state, we getting abused by Uncle Sam. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because
every day by
the state is right. The state is subject to international law. So
right. So that's why I'm trying to get out of the state shit, as we say, come out of her. You know what I'm saying? This is the ways in the show, brothers, we can come out of her. You know what I'm saying? You know? Please.
Open for signature indefinitely. Most multilateral treaties on human rights issues fall into this category. Example, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966. An International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1966. Generally, multilateral treaties deposited with the Secretary-General of the United Nations make provision for signature by all states members of the United Nations, or of the specialized agencies, or of the International Atomic Energy Agency, or parties to the Statute of the International Court of Justice. However, some multilateral treaties contain specific limitations on participation due to circumstances specific to them. For example, Article 2 of the Agreement Concerning the Establishing of Global Technical Regulations for Wheeled Vehicles, Equipment and Parts, which can be fitted and or be used on wheeled vehicles, 1998, limits participation to CE countries that are members of the Economic Commission for Europe, a UNECE, regional economic integration organizations that are set up by ECE member countries and countries that are admitted to the ECE in a consultative capacity. 3.1.3 Simple signature. Multilateral treaties usually provide for signature subject to ratification, acceptance, or approval. Approval also called.
All right, pardon. No, since we know the science of like signature, ratification, and all of that, we're gonna skip past that, and we're gonna go down to a session, because that's what we really want to deal with anyway. And actually, you know, too, full powers, the instrument of full powers. See, when you accede to the treaty, there's a couple of documents you have to have along with it. One of them are the instrument of full powers, the instrument of accession, and there's another one, a certificate of something. They're going to show that down later on in the thing. Those three documents you want to have along with your, you know, which actually kind of sets the stage for your, when they talk about the preliminary powers, or how do you pronounce that? Preliminary, whatever, how you, those powers are basically the full powers right here. They're showing right here. And
You talking about preeminent rights?
yeah, I guess you could say kind of like that. Yeah. You know, but it's another term they use, but it's kind of hard to pronounce. But yeah, but basically that's what they're talking about. And like King El Bell would break it down. He said like this instrument of full power kind of acts as like a attorney of power of attorney, you know, in a commercial sense, but this is more so in a treaty sense, where you're just basically saying you're protecting your rights and everything before you move forward. You know what I'm saying? Before you get into this.
6. Ratification. Ratification of the treaty's deposit. 3.2 Full powers. See the summary of practice, paras 101 to 115. 3.2.1 Signature of a treaty without an instrument of full powers. See section 6.2, which details how to arrange with the treaty section to sign a treaty. The head of state, head of government, or minister for foreign affairs may sign it.
Oh, see, and that's the thing, right? I said signature of instrument without full powers. So in other words, without full powers means you're gonna have to sign and be liable. But when you got your full powers, that's like a power of attorney. So now you're not liable. You're actually acting as a representative for the strawman, so to speak. But in this sense, they're gonna speak it in the sense of you defining yourself as a minister of foreign affairs for your international organization.
Right. That's why I was saying. Right. That's why I was saying it has to be. You have to ascend to a treaty through a structure.
Right.
It has to be through a structure.
Right. So that's why I was saying. Like,
either a social trust or an ecclesiastic government.
That will be done.
Right.
A treaty or undertake any other treaty action on behalf of the state without an instrument of full powers. 3.2.2 Requirement of instrument of full powers. A person other than the head of state, head of government, or minister for foreign affairs may sign a treaty only if that person possesses a valid instrument of full powers. This instrument empowers the specified representative to undertake given treaty actions. This is a legal requirement reflected in Article 7 of the Vienna Convention 1969. It is designed to protect the interests of all states parties to a treaty as well as the integrity of the depositary. Typically, full powers are issued for the signature of a specified treaty. Some countries have deposited general full powers with the Secretary General. General full powers do not specify the treaty to be signed, but rather authorize a specified representative to sign all treaties of a certain kind. Participating in multilateral treaties. 7. 3.2.3 Form of instrument of full powers. See the model instrument of full.
Yeah, so basically saying that the instrument of full powers is a requirement. So in other words, before you can accede to the treaty or anything like that, you have to have your instrument of full powers, and it's going to go on to also into the instrument of accession and so forth, whatnot. So this is like a requirement. You know what I mean? Like when I be hearing brothers talk about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and stuff like that, I don't hear them say nothing about this right here, and I'm like, okay, so then how are you utilizing that treaty if you haven't acceded to it properly, and if you haven't notified the United Nations or the Embassy of Morocco or anywhere? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand. But I mean, but this, I
6. Ratification, acceptance or approval To refrain in good faith from acts that would defeat the object and purpose of the treaty, see Article 18 of the Vienna Convention 1969. See, example, Article 1252 of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, 1998. This statute is subject to ratification, acceptance, or approval by signatory states. 3.1.4 Definitive signature. Some treaties provide that states can express their consent to be legally bound solely upon signature. This method is most commonly used in of the 3. See the summary of 3.2. See section 6. The head of state, head of government, a person other than some countries participating in multilateral treaties. 7. 3.2.3 Form of instrument of full powers. See the model instrument of full powers in Annex 3. As depositary, the Secretary General insists on proper full powers for the person, other than a head of state, head of government, or Minister for Foreign Affairs, seeking to sign a treaty. Documents not containing a legible signature from one of the above-mentioned authorities are not acceptable. Example, a telex message. Signature of a treaty without proper full powers is not acceptable. There is no specific form for an instrument.
Said, signature of a treaty without full powers is not acceptable. There is no specific, now, but also it says there is no specific form for an instrument of full powers, but it must include the following information. See, now, peep that. That right there shows you, and in other documents I can show you also, like in LLC forms and stuff like that. You know, there's also what's called a foreign LLC, but also on those forms they tell you that you don't have to use these exact forms. You can actually like draw up your own forms in lieu of, but just make sure that it has the basic components that were in the other form. So just like I said here, it says there's no specific form for instrument of full powers, but it must include the following information. So that just that in general goes to show you that with any and all documentation, that's what shows you that you have the right to contract any way you want. You can change the form of any document, basically, you know, unless it has some kind of clause.
As long as you adhere to the protocol.
Right, exactly,
Yeah,
basically.
as
Right.
long as you adhere to the protocol to allow it to be done.
Right, exactly.
Okay, let me read this right quick. It says full power documents by which the head of state, head of government, or minister of foreign affairs authorizes a person, usually an ambassador or minister, to sign a treaty on behalf of the state. The deposit of a instrument of accession is not preceded by the signature of the treaty.
Right. So in other words, meaning you're not necessarily acceded to it by signing on to it. I guess you have to get your ratification. I mean your acceptance, and so forth. But that's why I say, yo, I just accede to it. Accede to it, and then just boom, you in effect. You ain't got to sign on to nothing. You ain't got to wait for no, acceptance and all that. Just accede to it, and boom. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Let me read this too. Look, let me read this right quick because I think this is a point of interest too. The jurisdiction. It said jurisdiction is an aspect of sovereignty. It refers to a state competency under international law. Law to regulate the conduct of a natural and juridical person. The notion of the regulation include the activity of all branches of government, legislative, executive, and judicial. Although this state is conceived although this state is conceived of an international law as a single unit for the purpose of analyzing jurisdiction and its limits, some distinctions are usually made. On the one hand is the power to make law, decisions, or rules prescriptive to jurisdiction. On the other is the power to take, execute, or adjudicate action in pursuant of a consequent on the making of a decision or rule. So this is basically what they're trying to give you a mindset of. It's a mindset of following certain protocols so you can execute in a certain way through certain delegation of authority or power structure. And it says, okay, respectively enforcing our adjudicative jurisdiction. The starting point in this part of the law is the presumption that jurisdiction in all its forms is territorial and may be exercised extraterritorially without some specific basis in the international law. However, the territory theory has been refined in the light of experience and what amounts to extraterritorial jurisdiction and exclusively no inclusively or increasingly a
Yeah.
matter of appreciation. If there is a cardinal principle emerging, it is a genius connection between the subject matter of jurisdiction and the territory basis or reasonable interest of the state in question. And it should be stressed that this sufficiency of ground of jurisdiction is normally considered relative to the rights of other states. Thus, jurisdiction may be exercised over stateless persons or over non-nationals by nationals by nationals on their other grounds.
Right.
There is no assumption. There is no assumption even in criminal cases that individuals or corporations can be regulated only once in situations of multi-jurisdictional competency occurrence frequently. In such situations, there is no natural regulator, and the consequences of multi-law applying to the same transaction are managed rather than avoided double taxation during a case in point. So this is basically all they're saying is how a state is assumed to have the power that is to exercise. You know what I'm saying? To exercise as long as it's competent enough to live up to those principles. So it's based on that state's competency, whether its jurisdiction is can be exercised or whether it can exercise that particular jurisdiction of that state.
Right. That's why they always ask you for police always ask you for a state ID so they can exercise jurisdiction over you as their property. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I was just recently looking up too on extraterritorialism or whatever. And basically stating like how now let's say if you are a citizen of Morocco and you were traveling to the United States or whatever other country that's in peace and friendship with that treaty, that acceded to that treaty and so forth. So wherever in other lands where that treaty is enforced, you could be there and still have the extraterritorial jurisdiction extend in those other territories.
Right. It's basically the construct of the scope of the jurisdiction, how it expands beyond the actual territory.
Geographic, right? That is that. So that's ill, you know. See, that's being protected under international law. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where you can travel like that, you know, like you see how like the diplomats be traveling with diplomatic immunity and all that shit. Like, you know what I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I'm real fascinated by that diplomatic immunity. It's like, yo, man, that's what the fuck, nigga. Like, why not? Like, you know what I'm saying? Shit, we should have that shit. You know what I'm saying?
I think the general masses can even conceive of them being in these positions of, and it's really just be like they said, a competent state. So if you are competent of these principles and how to operate as such, then that's how you execute. You execute whatever power of your state. You know what I'm saying? That of whatever jurisdictional power you're trying to are basically ascending to treaties based on the protocol of having a instrument of full power and being a signatory to treaties through your foreign affairs department or whatever your government. That's why I say it's a government structural thing that is key. It's like you have to have these things set up, and this is why most people fall to get they satisfy with the remedies that they're getting within their jurisdiction.
Yeah, they want to just discharge some debt.
Right.
And that's not it. It's a whole lot more, you know what I'm saying? But yeah. So yeah, like you were saying, so like, you know, like even the word governments, you know, governments. Govern means to, you know, to operate, and ment is mind. So to operate or control the mind is through the consent of the people. They say the government rules by the consent of the people. So, like you said, if the United States set it up, I mean, they didn't just use competency; they also used fear, get down or lay down. You know what I'm saying? But you know, so now it seems like they're showing competency to express government and so forth, and we just all go along with it. Like, okay, you know, I'm gonna work my job, I'm gonna pay my taxes, I'm gonna be a law-abiding citizen, I'm gonna go to church, I'm gonna pray to Jesus, and you know, just I just hope that everything is all good. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's how they just got it running, you know what I'm saying? But the reality is that like we can, you know, come out of her, establish our own, just like you see, like the Mormons have done, the Jewish people have done, the Amish people, you know what I'm saying? All these different peoples, you know what I'm saying? These are just examples of, or you see certain indigenous tribes, you know what I'm saying, of native peoples, you know what I'm saying, and how they live just in their own communities and their own, you know, to themselves. And they just govern and do their own thing, you know what I'm saying? And see, like, I don't necessarily want to be one of those like indigenous tribes. I mean, we could be indigenous people, but that don't mean we got to be cut off from technology and all that shit. I mean, we ain't got to be up in the woods somewhere with no internet, no nothing, and we just up here talking about, yeah, we live in all off nature. Man, damn that shit. We in 2021. Ain't nothing wrong with using some technology. You know what I'm saying? As long as that technology is not destroying you. You know what I'm saying? Because technology can destroy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But if we're using it for good purposes, like this internet could be a negative tool. It could be a positive tool. You know?
That's the good thing about this mindset is that if you want to live off the grid, that's up to you. Just know how to be competent enough to protect whatever you establish off the grid. Hold on. Hey.
I don't know what happened. You didn't reply. I could
They had it. Because the homie, he went to the session already, and he already went to the set, so they had it today. So.
Well, why you didn't get back at me? Because it usually lets me know stuff.
I don't know.
When it is and what time and stuff.
I don't know. I'm on a recording right now, so I'm never get back with you. All right. Yeah, but like I was saying, people gonna have to take time to sit back and get with whatever people who willing to start governing over their affairs and start building the structures. Everybody start taking a position in that government.
Right, and that's why, you know. Don't get me to start ranting and raving about I'm trying to get brothers together and do this and do that and take a position and do this and that, and Nobody wants to step up to the plate. Everybody wants to talk, and make excuses. And they want to be like, yeah, I hear you, God, I hear you, God. And then when I'm like, okay, let me show you this. Oh, hold up, man. I gotta, you know what I'm saying? Niggas is out. You know what I'm saying? They gone. So, you know.
Well, I think it's because I love the idea of what the body politics that I'm working with. Their idea is for us to eventually establish a centralized government that will interact with the rest of the international community in our behalf or whatever. But we still will be a sovereign providence in that jurisdiction or whatever. So I like that idea because everyone still retains within that dynamics and that governmental structure that they're suggesting. Everybody still is a sovereign providence within the the state, the original state, or the. Cause what we're doing is we're going to realize the revision of Moorish sovereignty, and we're going to reestablish the Moorish imperial government. So anything, and why we're doing that is because we going into precedent of law and well settled jurisprudence to break down the fact that state, the original state that was what they call it, it's something about the head the head party in whatever treaties that was. It's like it's a word that specifically speaks to it, right? That it's the head. Damn, what's the name of that?
Head of state.
But basically, Morocco was the head state in most of those treaties. It was the head or the host state. My bad. That's what it is. Morocco was the host state for all those treaties. And what that means is that the treaty was written. They basically presented these treaties to these other states to agree upon. You know what I'm saying? So the what happens is you gotta go into the favor nation clause understanding and how these favor nation has to enforce the treaties whenever someone who is a party or of a state or a nation that's a party to the treaty, they have to give concessions to that nation or that state.
That's why they like have like the conferences and whatnot, you know what I'm saying, so that they can declare the fact that
Right.
all the other states have acceded to an agreement with, you know what I mean?
But what's interesting too is the Moroccan crisis. Go study the Moroccan crisis. So that's evidence that uh, Morocco was being the sovereignty of Morocco was being handled, custodian or entrusted, right? Entrusted to France, Spain. Well, France at first, and then Spain through proxy because France and Spain were allies,
Mm.
and then became most favored nation, or they can't retain most favored nation clause. And what that's so crazy about most favored nation clause is really they're deemed to enforce the treaties whenever a Moor is subject to any other state, and they're basically trying to claim or presume jurisdiction over a Moor. Then that state, if it's a party to the treaties, they supposed to. If you're going in there claiming you're a Moor, they supposed to enforce it. for their most favored nation. That's why you don't go to the United States of America, because they're not most favored nation.
Mm.
The United States of America is not most favored nation. So that, like I said, is an inferior state. There's no need to even go to them to address issues with them, because it's, put it like this:
That was deep
it's
right there.
easy, huh?
That was deep. That was a deep concept.
No, put it like this: it's easy to uh, supersede their so-called authorities. What I'm saying is the United States of America's so-called authority is so flimsy. That shit is
Right.
flimsy as hell.
Right. But it's so secured through its commerce. See what I'm saying? Because they didn't robbed all the resources of the world, so they got all these other nations dependent on them economically. So then, their weak legal status kind of gets overlooked because we need them for this and we need them for that, and we're in contract with them through this. That's why I remember in history class when I learned about when they taught us about spheres of influence, how like they would have naval bases in all these different countries, and they would have commercial trade basically with all these different countries, so they can have what's called spheres of influence all around the globe. So basically, they could be in
Right.
the United States, but have naval base set up over there and over here and over here, so they got power like all over. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
They
it's,
were conducting
it's really
proxy wars to sustain that sphere of influence. They be
right.
throwing proxy wars. They be basically destabilizing different states in their foreign interests.
And they really trying to mock the British Empire. You know how they had their saying, "The sun never sets on the British Empire," but they trying to they trying to copy that whole model. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Have you ever heard of a lawsuit called Nassar?
It sounds familiar, but we can go into it though.
I'm gonna look it up right quick. Hold up.
You want to share your screen? I'm gonna click this down for a minute.
Let me find it first, cause gotta.
And when you click it, you might have to
You can
you know the
continue to
little
go with your thing.
star
I gotta
thing.
find it.
You know the star thing up in the browser. You have to click on that, and then when you click on it, it'll say on the thing, click the button that says done, and that'll like save it to your thing. And then when you go on the blue button, which is present to make your presentation, you go on there, click select hit tab or whatever, and it'll pop up. I'll show you when you're done. When you pull it up, let me know. But yeah, that's deep
Yeah, I be
though
having
about
so
the
many damn notes. I need to organize my notes.
what you just said about the most favored
I need to just
nation.
organize my notes, cause I got a gang of damn reference points that I can just.
Yeah. See, and now like I said, now you got this app. You can do a subscription. It's like only $12 or whatever for the year for your subscription, and they tell you this is like a private thing. Well, so they say or whatever, but whatever. And you can do your things, maybe your breakdowns, your bills, all that. It's just right here. I like this. I like this little app right here.
Right.
And
I
for the
kind
teacher.
of like that. I kind of like that one that I'll be using, that OBS.
Yeah. You gotta put me
I
onto
like that
that.
OBS.
Yeah. You gotta put me onto that.
If that can link with that, if that's compatible with this, that'd be dope.
Yeah, because it'll be ill to be able to pull up multiple screens and kind of go through them. That'll help a lot too, because then you ain't got to keep closing this one, going in, open it back up, and all that. You know what I mean? You can kind of just get them all set, and then when you go on, you'll just have them all ready for your presentation. You know what I mean? That's it.
Oh, let me
save a
see
lot.
if I can. He said, friend.
Yeah, you said the most favored nation. So yeah, so basically, yeah, that's why the U.S. don't never do shit. You know what I'm saying? They always be like, yeah, we'll see, and you always got to go outside of them. You always got to go to the United Nations or the World Court or whatever the case may be. You know, um, the
Okay,
brother also,
I think I'm
yeah,
about to see. It says that this will let you take over the Lord Messiah as the main presenter. That's how I can share my screen right there.
oh, okay, yeah. Let me take, yeah. I'm gonna just, I can just stop the, yeah. Go ahead, yeah. Just you can share. Yeah, when you click on the thing, and then you're gonna see hit a tab. You know. Oh, and did you click the star button up there so that you can save it into the thing? Yeah, you heard you. You froze up. All right, you back in. Yeah, froze up for a second. All right, but yeah, did you hit the star up in your browser where it says add this to
Star.
your favorites? All right, you in there. You in the building. Um, well, yeah, you're sharing your screen, but
Okay, yeah.
all right, but yeah, but look up at your browser. In your browser, go to the right of your browser. You're gonna see the star.
Star. Is it on
Well,
okay.
pardon,
On the
sir, maybe
right of
not on
my
that one.
browser I should see
Hit,
the
hit,
star.
hit stop share. Hit stop share. Hold on, God. Go to
You see I'm sharing
stop.
right now. You can actually see what I'm doing.
All right. Well,
Stop
yes, I
presenting.
don't see your screen. All right. Now go to you see your browser up there? Go to your browser. You see the star where it says add this page to favorite?
Okay, so my browser up here, and
Yeah.
you talking about not the search engine, the browser.
Right. Not like, yeah, the browser where it says should say meetgoogle.com. Go to the right of that. You should see a star at the end of your browser, like to the far right of your browser. And when you click that star, you should be able to add the favorites. When you add something to your favorites.
I don't see no star that you're talking about. But
I'm sure
I
you're
was able to share. So all I need to do is share this right quick.
all right. Go back to what you were doing because it didn't look like your screen was popping up. It was doing when it does all that layer, like it looks like going way back into the thing. It means that it's not the right thing. See, it's doing that, so it's not the right what you call it on there. It's kind of like you're looking at yourself or something, or
I know, but all I got to do is just get out of here, and then you able to see.
Okay, all right. Okay, pardon yourself, dog. All right, there you go.
Yeah,
There
you
you
able
go.
to see
I
what
can
I'm
see.
doing now, right?
Sorry.
You able to see what I'm doing, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It says
Okay.
all the states is conceived in international law.
Yeah, that's what I just read.
All
Okay, let me get on here right quick. Well, I think I'm already on the internet. That's why I was doing that shit. Because I'm on the internet, so I'm gonna get on Chrome. I'll get on Chrome. Okay. You still can see what I'm doing, right?
right.
You still can see what I'm doing, right?
Yeah. I see. Mhm. One second.
NASAR is the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. Okay. The National Economic Security and Recovery Act was a set of proposed economic reforms for the United States suggested during the 1990s by um, Harvey Francis or Francis Bernier, and Bernier claims that the proposal, which includes replacing the economic tax with a national sales tax, adopting compact interest on security loans, and returning the BIM the Bentolic currency. Bentolic currency is a monetary system which the value of the monetary system, which the value of the monetary unit is defined as equivalent to the certain quantities of two metals, right? So this right
So
here, this
back in the
act
monetary system with
is
gold and
returning
gold.
all this is an international act too, and it's returning all monetary um, systems back to the gold standard, basically.
Hmm.
The gold and this has already been passed. This has already been
Wasn't Trump dealing with something like that?
huh?
Wasn't Trump dealing with that under his administration? They saying something like that under Trump's administration. He's talking about going back to the gold standard and all that. You know what I mean?
Well, they was speaking on that principle too, but this right here, since the 1990s, it was a lawsuit that was given by a number of I believe
National economic
who were
security.
being abused economically on their land and stuff. So they had a big ass lawsuit against these particular nations. The United States of America was one of the ones. It said would result in 1% inflation, 0.
And it says it was suppressed by George Bush administration and the Supreme Court.
Take it now.
Please.
Because this they have to comply with actual provisions as the National Economic Security Reform Act. Association and the Supreme Court. Goodwin's conspiracy emails have been translated into several languages and have a large following online. But this is not a conspiracy at all. This is an actual lawsuit that was won on an international lawsuit that was won, and it as a result of them winning that lawsuit, they created this act. So this is
What is the
forcing
act?
all of these states to return back to the gold standard.
Okay.
Let's see.
So that's why, then now, like the HAR 192 and all of that is definitely affect, public law 9310, all debts is paid because I can't pay you the money if you ask me for Federal Reserve notes. I don't have that. I don't have any gold, so how can I pay this debt? Give the IOU.
Right. So this is also, yeah, you also is it's saying that they can't no more inflate, no longer. So if they continue to do this, they will be a violation of this act or whatever. Trying to see where the okay. Oh, there it is. Monetary and Policy Fund Act. That's where. Hold on, let me go. Cat, if you don't get away from me. Ah, shit. What did I do?
So so if everything's back to the gold standard, then what's up with this fiat currency?
Right. Yeah, my computer is acting up, bro.
Moving slow. Yeah, I think that's it. Google, man, they be knowing, man, like, yo, this nigga trying to get to the deep shit. Hold up. Just throw a monkey wrench in there. Split, throw a glitch in the matrix.
Oh, I just downloaded this
Yeah.
shit.
What was you on pulling up?
Huh?
What was you
What'd you
pulling
say?
up?
Yeah, it's just coming up
I'm
slow.
yeah, all right, check it. I'm gonna chime this session out because we've been going a little minute, and I'm gonna send you another link and come back in.
All right.
Let me just, you know what I mean? All right, so I'm gonna just send you the next one. Thanks.